We are here at City Hall in New York City for the first hearing of Intro 1476, the bill to ban the sale of fur in New York City. We're here at City Hall. I'm here with founder and president of Voters for Animal Rights, Allie Taylor. Allie, how important is this hearing today?
This is incredibly important. Today, the City Council is going to be having their first committee hearing on Intro 1476, the bill to ban the sale of fur. This is the first time that the City Council has ever taken up this issue, and it's incredibly important that we have a very strong showing today of animal advocates, and I think everybody in the community has really delivered today. So many people here took off from work, got a babysitter, got a dog walker, called in sick today so they could be here and speak up against a brutal and abusive fur trade.
So you wrote an op-ed in which you said that the anti-fur ban people, the furriers, are using Trump-like tactics to kill this bill. What are some of the things that they've been saying or doing?
They absolutely are using Trump-like tactics. We have seen them try and bully council members into voting against the bill, and we're encouraging the City Council to stand strong, look at all the facts, look at the fact that we have over 30 veterinarians in support of the ban. We have over 50 organizations that are part of the Fur Free Coalition. We have dozens of businesses who are successfully making cruelty-free fashion, whether it's in the lab or out of plants. We also have put out a list of all of the different myths and lies that the fur industry has come up with. But at the end of the day, the reason that they're doing this is because they know that public opinion is not on their side, right? We know that 75% of New Yorkers want to see a ban on the sale of fur, done in an independent poll by Mason-Dixon. We know that there's no way to justify bludgeoning an animal to death, skinning them alive, anal and vaginal electrocution. And so just like President Trump, the fur industry relies on these untruthful alternative facts in order to deceive the public and try and deceive city officials. And we're not going to stand for it. When they go low, we go high.
Thank you so much, Allie. Thank you for all your work and good luck today.
Thank you.
I'm here with Joshua Catcher. He is the founder, owner of Brave Gentlemen. Joshua, why are you out here today?
I'm out here because this is just a common sense law. The entire world and the most respected designers in the world are moving away from fur. Fur is unnecessary, it's cruel, and we have superior materials to work with. This is an archaic symbol of status, and we do horrible things to animals, confining them to small wire cages for their entire lives, trapping them in the wild. It's terrifying for them, all for a fiber. And we have better things that we can use. We have superior materials. There's a wave of incredible innovation that is truly sustainable and truly ethical. And New York City is the fashion capital of the world, and we are so much better than fur.
I know something that the anti-fur ban people, the furriers, are saying is that it's sustainable, it's environmentally friendly, but what about that is false?
Everything about that is false. Fur needs to be preserved with formaldehyde and chromium, and it's dyed with azo dyes, and these are carcinogenic and petrochemicals, and the industry itself, fur farms, are factory farms. They are fossil fuel dependent, and they are emitting water pollution, air pollution. Think about all that waste on a fur farm, all those animals jam-packed into a small ecosystem. The ammonia causes eutrophication in aquatic systems, destroying aquatic life. This is not an eco-friendly industry. This is pure greenwashing, total marketing BS.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for everything that you do, and good luck today.
Thank you.
We're here at City Hall in New York City. I'm here with prominent New York City activist Jill Carnegie. Jill, how important is this hearing today?
This is history in the making. For New York City, the leader in fashion in this country, to make the declaration that it is time to legislate compassion by banning the sale and production of fur within New York City limits, I think is just absolutely incredible.
So there's a huge crowd of anti-fur ban people, but you are wearing a beautiful, beautiful piece. Who made this and where did it come from?
So this is a piece by Peluche, and the designer, Anna, is here local in New York City, and this particular piece is a mix of different furs. So basically this mixes faux chinchilla, faux fox, and faux mink into one couture piece. This is high fashion, and she's shown at Fashion Week, and this is, again, made in New York City. And no one can tell the difference. I've had a lot of people here who work in the industry who looked very impressed by this piece, only to find out that I'm here in support of the ban. Whoops.
And what is this bag that you're carrying?
So this is another animal-free designer, local. It's called Gunas, New York. So this brand is 100% animal-free, just like Peluche. And these are both women-run businesses. They're local. I mean, this is really the future. These are the kinds of businesses that conscious consumers want to support. And it's already happening. So the people across the street here, they already have incredible skills. They have artistry. They can simply transition that to new materials.
I'm here with prominent New York City activist Mikey D. Mikey, how excited are you for this hearing today?
I am so pumped. This is so wild. I never thought in all my years of activism that this would be a thing that would be, up for vote in the city council. I am so thankful to Speaker Corey Johnson for putting this on the bill, for the mayor supporting it. It is so wild. There's a ton of opposition here, but I think we're on the right side. We have the truth. We have the videos. We have the horrific reality of what happens. They have some blah, blah, jibbery jab. And we got this. The hearing is about to happen. I'm super excited to testify myself. I'm going to testify on behalf of Tamerlane Sanctuary and Preserve because we have these animals at our preserve. We have coyote, we have fox, and we have rabbits. And I've seen these animals interact in nature, and I've seen these coyotes in packs at night, like in their little, just in their family units, and it's such a beautiful thing to see, and these animals deserve to live, and I'm so pumped to get to speak for them today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here, and good luck.
Oh my God, thank you.
We're free NYC! We're free NYC!
I'm here with Angelina for the animals. Angelina, you have been an activist basically your whole life. How important is it to be here today?
It is extremely important because banning the sale of animal fur in New York City is so crazy and it's so important. We need to be here right now to make an impact and really get this point across.
Are you going to speak inside?
Yes, I am.
And you have your speech all prepared?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here and good luck inside. This is Gia for the animals. Gia, why are you out here today?
Because I care for the animals and I don't want their skin being, I don't want them being crammed in filthy cages and electrocuted. And they don't deserve this because it's their life, it's their skin, and just because they have a fur coat on them doesn't mean people need it. People do not need it.
Are you excited to be here?
Yes,
Does this scare you a little bit or you're good?
I'm good.
Thank you for being here, Gia. Mitchell. Stuart, why did you come out today?
I think this is important for the animals. There's no reason why in 2019 we should still be wearing fur. We shouldn't treat animals as a commodity and take what's rightfully theirs. And that's why I'm here to support the fur ban in New York City.
And are you planning on speaking today?
Yeah, I was asked to speak, and I prepared a speech, and I definitely plan on speaking.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and good luck inside.
Thank you.
Why did you come out here today?
To support the fur ban.
And why is that important? Why do you think it's important that we ban fur in New York City?
Because we nowadays have so many other vegan options to wear, and we no longer need the fur, the animal skin, or like it used to be in the past. We no longer need it nowadays.
And are you going to speak today?
I was planning. Well, I didn't bring my copy. That's the thing. But I did control. It's under 3 minutes. It's pretty much 2 minutes, so that's fine.
And what are some of the things you were going to say in your when you spoke today?
Well, my plan was like, everybody nowadays celebrates freedom, and I believe that with freedom you can do anything that you want. However, we share this planet, and your choices, everybody's choices, affects the future of our children. So let's please be considerate. And I want to remind also that all animals have important roles in the ecosystem, and just reducing them to vanity clothes, it's a shame. So let's please just choose among the thousands options of vegan clothing.
With Herman Morales. Herman is an ex-furrier. What made you come over to our side?
Well, the fact was that I worked as a furrier in Gimbel Brothers 46 years ago while I was going to Baruch College for business administration. I used to sell furs on the weekends for a 2% commission. And my idea would be sell $10,000 worth of these beautiful furs. And I was a good salesman, and I would often do that so I could make a $200 commission on the weekend. But 45 years ago, there was no YouTube and social media or computers, and you didn't see what was going on in the slaughterhouses and in the animal farms. And now that I've become aware of that, I realize the suffering that's going on. And I have 2 cats myself, and I even had a dog, but yet I used to sell furs. And it's funny because I was coming here in the morning now for this demonstration. I ran into 3 furriers on the train. Yes, no, I didn't know them. But I kind of said to the trainers, they're even going to the fur ban, thinking that they were going to be animal rights activists, but they were furriers. And I was talking to them, and one guy was telling me, well, I have 2 cats and 3 mink coats in my closet for my wife. And then I talked to him about veganism, and he said, Mayor de Blasio wants to make vegetarian meals 3 times a week for students in school now. He says, but my son is allergic to vegetarian meals. So we're fighting an industry that's very rich and very powerful. They have deep pockets, but we have the populace on our side. We have the people on our side. The recent poll was taken. 75% of New Yorkers agree with us. So we know that our local politicians are listening to us, and they know that their re-election depends on animal rights legislation like this going forward.
And speaking of our council members and our politicians, you're running for city council, yes?
Yeah, I'm running for city council in District 25 in the year 2021, and I'm going to continue this battle. This battle it has to be won, because it's part of the new Green Deal. It's part of the Green New Deal, and we need to have sustainable industries, and killing animals for fur is not sustainable, because not only do they kill farm animals that there is in the farms, but then you have these rogue hunters that go out and look for the wild, and because they don't have animals, but they want to sell the pelts, and they'll kill animals in the wild, and we're going to kill our wildlife. It's like the oceans. By the year 2030, there will be more plastic in the oceans than fish. So where are we going with this? If we don't do this for the children now, we'll have no planet for them tomorrow.
Well, thank you so much. I so appreciate you being here, and good luck inside.
Free NYC!
Councilmember Helen Rosenthal, thank you so much for being here. How important is this hearing right now?
Oh my gosh, critical. New York City could be a leader on the fur ban, and it's time that we step up. This is the fashion capital of the world, and when we make our mark, and when we pass legislation to be fur-free, we're going to be leading the way to end animal abuse. I am so excited to be a proud sponsor of this legislation. We're going to win.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here, and good luck with all of this.
You know what I had for breakfast?
Of course I want to know what you had for breakfast.
Okay, breakfast this morning, we had dairy-free bread with walnuts and raisins, a black bread with peanut butter and a banana. And for my coffee, I had Planet Oat Milk, delish, and pretty much that's what I have every day. I thought I'd share that.
Well, we appreciate you sharing that. Thank you.
Diet is all I'm saying. Plant-based diet is the way to go. That's how I have the energy to do what I do every single day.
Well, we thank you so much, and thank you for being here, and thank you for all your support, and thank you for co-sponsoring. Thank you.
Absolutely. Rock it.
Next, I want to bring up Dan Matthews from PETA.
Dan Matthews, Vice President of PETA.
Good to see you all here today. I'm Dan Matthews with PETA. PETA has been very involved with the fur bans that passed very overwhelmingly in Los Angeles and San Francisco. The reason that lawmakers are banning fur is because fur producers operate outside of the law. They are one of the only industries that use animals that get no government inspection or oversight whatsoever on the way they treat animals. Animals are injected with weed killer, they're electrocuted on mink farms, they are killed in such atrocious ways. And I brought away a trap here. This trap you can buy on Amazon for $10. These are banned in over 100 countries, but are legal throughout much of the United States. Let's take one look and imagine this being a small animal's bone. Fur-free New York!
Fur-free New York! Fur-free New York! Fur-free New York! Fur-free New York! Fur-free New York! Fur-free New York!
Good afternoon. Millions of animals are killed every year for their fur. It could take hundreds of lives to make a single coat. While New York is the fashion capital of the world, we are behind the times when it comes to this issue. Other major U.S. cities in over 20 countries around the world have banned fur farming or the import and sale of animal fur products. Stella McCartney famously said, "Fur is the most unnecessary thing in the world," and she is not alone in her beliefs. Donna Karan, Michael Kors, Diane von Furstenberg, Tommy Hilfiger, Gucci, Burberry, Chanel, Armani, Furla, Philip Lim, Vivienne Westwood, and the list goes on, have all taken steps to eliminate fur and institute fur-free policies. This bill that we are hearing today will ban the sale of new fur products within the 5 boroughs and prevent the unnecessary slaughter of animals going forward. This bill will not prevent the selling or repurposing of used fur garments or anyone from wearing or owning fur in New York City. We are not about to raid your closet. Today, I think it's important to talk about the real truth behind the so-called glitz and glamour of the fur industry. Despite their claims to the contrary, there is no such thing, in my estimation, as ethical fur, or ecological fur, or excellent welfare fur. That is marketing language aimed at hiding the brutality of this business.
Honorable council members, throughout my career as chair of the Department of Fashion Design at Parsons, as chief creative officer at Liz Claiborne, and as co-host of Project Runway, I have advocated against fur. The fashion business has a troubling history with animals, but it's quickly evolving. Believe it or not, furriers used to slice up chimpanzees, gorillas, monkeys, leopards, baby seals, and tigers for their fur. Most of that was declared illegal in the 1970s when the federal government enacted the Marine Mammal Protection Act and the Endangered Species Act. Now, it's time to safeguard all the other animals from such gratuitous violence by supporting City Council Speaker Corey Johnson's bill to ban fur sales in New York City, as lawmakers have already done in Los Angeles and San Francisco. There isn't much to be happy about in politics today, but this trend towards kindness should give everyone hope. At Parsons, the fur trade enjoyed years of unchallenged promotion in which it enticed budding designers to work with fur by offering them free pelts, trips to Scandinavia, and sponsorships. I introduced a program in which PETA was given equal time to screen videos showing what happens to animals on fur farms around the world before their pelts end up in New York showrooms. Foxes, rabbits, chinchillas, and even dogs and cats are anally electrocuted, gassed, bludgeoned, and often skinned alive. Student interest in the fur program dried up as quickly as enthusiasm for sustainable design increased. Consumer demand for fur has plummeted. According to the treasurer of Greater Fur New York, just 14 retail storefronts selling fur remained in the garment district in 2018, down from 450 in 1977. This year, there are even fewer. Fashion has evolved. Designers are finding it increasingly easy to be creative without being destructive. Hundreds of fabrics have been developed that are more eco-friendly and animal-friendly. I thank you very much.
My name is Joshua Katcher. I'm a fashion designer, author, and educator. I've taught at Parsons and lectured internationally on the topics of ethics and sustainability in fashion. The beauty of a garment should be matched by the beauty of how it was made. This is why fur is the epitome of bad design. So many respected brands, retailers, cities, and countries have already left fur behind. In this age of transparency, any positive symbol of fur crumbles when the truth about how it is made is revealed. In the past 2 months, 5 major studies and polls from respected firms like the Boston Consulting Group show that demand for fur is plummeting. Shoppers want cruelty-free products. The fur industry's profits hinge on lies they tell and truths they hide, and fur production is hidden for good reason. A typical fox or mink on a factory farm will languish. These are wild animals stuck in small wire cages for their entire lives. This is not natural. Then they are anally or vaginally electrocuted, gassed, or worse, some are skinned alive. Imagine the desperation. Consider the animal's perspective. Now multiply that by over 100 million. The fur industry wants you to think that formaldehyde, chromium, and chemically dyed fur is natural and sustainable. Their misleading ads have already been exposed by the French and Dutch advertising standards authorities for making dubious, natural, sustainable, and humane treatment claims. Those same ads are running here in American fashion magazines. Let's talk about jobs. The fur industry claims that furriers can do no other work, yet they know how to design, pattern, sew, drape, sample, merchandise, and more. Fur is simply one input. I've taught fashion students, and I assure you that every single one of those skills are valuable, in demand, and transferable. Fur is obsolete. Thank you.
My name is Allie Feldman Taylor, and I'm the president and founder of Voters for Animal Rights in Brooklyn. I'm here as a resident of New York City, a voter, and in my official capacity to represent our thousands of supporters in New York City. We are an all-volunteer grassroots organization. Today, you will hear testimony from those who support and those that oppose. I ask that you consider the motives behind every person who testifies today. The dozens of experts and hundreds of advocates who are in this room in support of banning the sale of fur are here for one simple reason. Animals do not have a voice and suffer greatly at the hands of the very people who are here to oppose this bill. Those who testify in opposition do it because they profit from the abuse that this bill seeks to end. In front of you, you have a bound packet. We've prepared an informational packet for your consideration that I think you'll find very helpful. Inside, you will find facts and evidence in support of the bill, including polling numbers showing that 75% of New York City voters support this bill. This poll was conducted by Mason-Dixon and shows overwhelming support for the legislation across every borough, every demographic, and every political party. Also in your packet is a letter of support from over 50 not-for-profit organizations that are part of our Fur Free NYC coalition, representing hundreds of thousands of supporters. There's also a letter of support from over 30 veterinarians. The fur industry cannot win a civil debate on the merits, so they resort to using their money to bully and spread misinformation to the general public and the city council, representing everything that's wrong in politics. They've hired expensive lobbyists and marketing firms to spin the truth, sent out thousands of mailers and robocalls with misinformation attacking some of you on this very committee, and have bought ads that are riddled with lies to cause fear among New Yorkers. And recently, they've gone so far as to create fake Twitter accounts controlled by the fur industry, pretending to be New York City residents and attacking Speaker Johnson personally. We've called on the fur industry to apologize for these tactics, but they've refused. All of these tactics we find ridiculous, but we're going to take the high road while they take the low road. We are at a pivotal juncture in our society. We can either take back our democracy from unethical industries or allow those with money to undermine and destroy what makes New York a beacon of light for good. We ask humbly to reject their lies, abusive practices, and support a more compassionate New York City. You just saw actual footage of the animals being caged, killed, skinned alive, and trapped in steel traps. This bill is about those animals who do not have a voice. Fur is a relic of the past and has no place in a progressive, civilized New York City. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and Committee. My name is Mark Oaten. I am the Chief Executive of the International Fur Federation. We're the organisation that represents the fur industry in over 50 countries around the globe.
So as part of the standards you're talking about in New York State, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, electrocution of fur-bearing animals is not lawful in the state of New York. It was banned a few years ago. Would pelts from electrocuted animals be certified under FurMark?
Yes, because we've based it on independent science, and so it's not for me to come in and judge that. The EU, for example, has this as the most ethical and humane standard, that electrocution is the quickest, fastest and best way to euthanize an animal. It's not something we set, it's something the EU have independently assessed. And again, I've got a 30-page document I can share with you which sets out exactly why they believe that is the humane and fairest way to euthanize.
Electrocuting animals.
It is tested by scientists, welfare experts.
It doesn't make you uncomfortable, electrocuting animals?
What would make me uncomfortable is me deciding rather than a scientist deciding. I put my faith in independent scientists and welfare experts. That always has to be the thing to do in my judgment. Both you and I are laymen when it comes to this issue. We have to trust the experts.
I mean,
and I'm very happy to have those experts give evidence and cross-examine them.
I understand. We heard from a medical expert. We heard from a doctor who spoke in the previous panel, a veterinarian, who specializes in the treatment of animals. And she doesn't feel comfortable, I think, with what you're saying. So I don't think there's a singular threshold. You may have one scientist that says one thing, and there are plenty of other scientists who wouldn't think that that's the appropriate standard to use.
And I think sometimes you're going to have some vets and scientists who just don't believe that animals should be used for this purpose. So they will be against whatever method it is that is used to euthanize. What I'm talking about is that independent experts who have said, look, this is the kindest, the fairest, the best way to euthanize. And as I said, I base it on science, and I'm really happy to share that science. So, if there's alternative science, let's have a look at that as well.
So what other killing methods are allowed under FurMark? If you could give me a list of what is allowed under FurMark to kill animals.
Okay, so we base it on, as I said, the scientific evidence. The mink are euthanized within around 5 seconds from being taken from the cage and then put into a box where they're gassed. That is around 5 seconds. They're not transported anywhere. As you've heard, for the fox, that is electrocution as being the best and most humane method. And then as we've talked about for the trapped fur, that will be different kinds of approved traps, which will be bespoke for the different animals that are trapped in different ways. So for each species, it's different, and it's based, again, on the scientific evidence that we're given.
So what about for coyotes?
For coyotes, that would be trapping as well. That would be, they're not euthanized by electricity or gas. That is a trapped breed. And that is done in Canada and America, and you'll hear from our trapping experts later on. That is highly inspected by the government, the wildlife authorities in Canada and America, and has been developed over for decades of expertise on humane trapping.
So I just want to read from you. This is the Finnish Code of Good Practice for Human Killing in Foxes. This is what the code says from Finland on what they consider to be a good practice of. It's part of the FurMark standard. And this is what it says. quote, the position of the electrodes, the shape of the electrodes, and the pressure used to hold electrodes affect the efficacy of electrocution. It has been found that when one electrode is placed properly inside the rectum and one is bitten by the fox, the current passes through the fox properly. The rod electrode should be placed sufficiently deep in the rectum and firmly into the mouth. The current induces epileptic seizures in the brain and fibrillation or cardiac arrest in the heart. It should be checked that the restraining device or other materials in contact with the fox do not affect the path or effectiveness of the current flow. Many physiological properties affect the current flow, such as body size. Therefore, the voltage and amperage should be sufficiently high for the current to overcome the body resistance of even the largest of foxes. So do you agree with that standard? It's part of what the FurMark standard is.
That is part of the EU standard, and it's part of the welfare standard, which will be part of FurMark. And that, as I said, is based on the scientific evidence of the most humane way to do it. Of course, for many people, the detail of how any animal is put down is...
How do you define humane?
I define it based on the vets and the scientists who have years of experience.
We just agreed that there's not a singular standard, that vets and scientists don't all agree on this. So what I'm asking for you, which vets and scientists, what is your personal comfortability standard on how to humanely treat an animal, kill an animal for the purposes of fur?
I think whether I'm looking at an animal which is slaughtered for meat, or whether it's an animal slaughtered as part of leather, or for whatever purpose, the number one consideration and concern I have is, has that animal suffered and has it been treated humanely? And I wouldn't do this job, honestly would not do this job, unless I was confident that this industry operates to that high standard.
Do you think the industry is currently operating with that standard?
I believe that it is, but I want to make sure that I do more and I push harder, and that's why I passionately want to see FurMark introduced.
If we're going to have an honest conversation,
Sure.
You think that the industry currently is?
Yes.
Why are you proposing this if you think the industry currently is?
Because I want to move further, because at the moment, a lot of the inspections are done by governments, and I actually want to reach a higher threshold. I want to bring in scientists, independent.
Okay, could you be a little self-reflective and tell me what you could be doing better to treat animals?
I think the issue is around the inspection. I think we need to have more inspection. And the second issue
No
is
animals in this industry are mistreated.
No, I don't believe that animals are mistreated in this industry. I believe that what we need to do, however, is to have a better way of demonstrating to you, to give you confidence and consumers, that we can trace and track exactly where those animals have come from, which trapping line and which farm, and to give reassurance that the best possible welfare has been put in place. Look, science always changes. There are always new methods, and we want to make sure we're at the cutting edge of all of that, whether that's to do with the kind of feed used, the kind of cage used, the kind of water that is given to the animals. I'm never ever going to rest and say this is enough. We've always got to push further and find better methods. That's always possible with science.
But traps don't discriminate. If you lay a trap, any animal could walk into that trap, right?
Again, you'll hear from the trapping experts. I'm not one, so I'm not going to give you misinformation, but they are designed specifically for the certain animals they're trying to capture, and are not therefore designed to capture the wrong animal. But the trapping experts will give you the detail on how that works. I'm not the expert. I'm not going to answer a question where I don't have my facts.
I mean, that seems a little convenient, given that you're up here representing...
It's just an honest... I've said to you all along, I want to base it on facts.
Mark, if you're here to represent the International Fur Federation and you're talking about FurMark, these are questions that you should be able to answer. You shouldn't, if you don't feel comfortable and say, I don't want to answer that question, but don't pass it off to other people. You're up there as the chief spokesperson here at the New York City Council for the International Fur Federation and putting forward a new standard. So if you can't say, well, someone else has the expertise. You are here proposing something. If you're coming to testify in front of this body, have the expertise to speak on it.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very confident about what we're doing in relation to traps. You asked me a direct question about whether the traps work for every single animal.
So they do discriminate. The traps are figured out. They're designed in a way where if a trap is made for a coyote and a cat steps in the trap, the cat's not going to get hurt. It was only designed for the coyote.
That is exactly what I'm saying to you. But if you want the detail on how that works, If you want the detail on how that works, we've got some great experts coming to give you all of that
So
detail.
scientists have found that death by gas is painful for mink. You said that minks are gassed. You said it takes 5 seconds between the cage and the gassing of the minks, and they found that it's not immediate. It induces seizures, and it's not always effective as a means of inducing death, such as animals that are skinned alive. What alternatives to gassing are there?
Well, skinning alive is absolutely something which does not happen in the fur trade, and I'm appalled to hear some of the misinformation that goes around. Why would that be something that anybody would do? It's abhorrent, it's disgusting, and there is absolutely no way that happens in this industry.
So what about the videos? The videos fake videos?
I'm more than happy to share with you the affidavit that we have from the individuals involved who made that film, who have claimed that it's a fake video and that this was a one-off and they were paid to do that. And I can share you all those affidavits that they've made. Skinning alive does not happen in this industry. Absolutely.
So what are the other alternative methods to gassing?
So gassing is the most humane method. That is the method that we have been told by the scientists and the welfare experts is the best way for mink. It is the kindest way because they are literally dead within 5 seconds from leaving the cage to going into the gas and euthanized box.
Animal welfare experts suggest that even farmed animals require a meaningful amount of space to roam, and that animals like mink, which are semi-aquatic, need water to fulfill their basic instincts that they're born with. In other countries like the UK, fur farming has been banned because the basic needs of animals cannot be met in farming conditions. So what conditions are provided to fox and mink on fur farms to give them the ability to behave naturally?
So within the Furmark standard, there is a list of 22 different assessments. These assessments cover checks to see whether the animals are naturally happy and their behavioral measures. And I've been and seen what these different checks are. It's important to make sure, obviously, there is flowing water all the time, that they have forms of entertainment to look after themselves within the cage. These are all set out and checked against a set of criteria, and the inspectors will go around and they will look at the behavior of the animals to make sure that they are behaving normally and without any disquiet within the cages.
How big are the cages?
The cages vary when it's between mink and between fin raccoon and between chinchilla and between foxes. So
how big is a fox cage?
I would have to turn to one of the farmers on the actual sizing of the fox cages.
And are animals caged together or separately?
They're caged together, but there's a limit on the amount of animals that can be together because when they're breeding and when they're having their kits or their pups, they have to obviously be together at that process, at that point.
Studies have shown that fur farming, in particular, the manure produced from farmed animals, has serious and harmful consequences for local ecosystems. If you could tell me about your efforts, if any, to minimize the local ecological effects of fur farming.
Okay, so we're just completing what we call a life cycle analysis, which looks at the impact of fur on the climate. And it is true, certainly as one of the speakers said earlier on, that there are emissions that come from a farm, but that is countered off by the fact that we're able to use byproducts from the farm, so that the mink byproduct will go into composting, fertilizer, and so there is an offset there. There's also an offset because a lot of waste food is actually the food which is used to feed the mink. So the scientists have looked at the impact as to whether it's negative or positive. And because our product is not something which is thrown away and goes into landfill within 2 or 3 years, it's generally normally a 10 to 15 year life cycle that people will have a fur coat for, often passing it on to a generation. That environmental impact is spread out over a 15-year period. So we're very confident to say that when you compare it to, say, fake fur, we come out much, much better in terms of the environmental impact.
And you said that you believe that fur is a very sustainable product.
A natural and sustainable product, yes.
And what about chromium?
So we do, obviously, with the dressing and dyeing process, put in colouring, and that is something where There are regulations, again, coming in under FERMARK, so we will have an approved list of chemicals. There'll be inspectors coming in to check those approved lists of chemicals are being used. These will all be REACH compliant. REACH is the international standard for the chemicals that can be used. But I would like to go further and see if we can start to be able to introduce more natural-based dyes in the dressing and dyeing process as well. The dressing part is non-chemical based. It's using salt and water. Obviously, the dyeing bit is where you bring the chemicals in, and they are set against an approved list and independently inspected.
But would you consider chromium and formaldehyde to be sustainable natural products?
No, those individual chemicals themselves, you would not call natural.
But they're part of the fur industry.
They are part of the fur industry, and they're part of the dressing and dyeing process.
And are they going to go away? Are you going to use something else besides them? Can we get rid of formaldehyde and chromium?
I think over time we can, yes. We can move. We're certainly working already at the moment with natural dyes, and we're looking at that. What we need to do there, honestly, is to have the fashion industry work with us closer, because they're often the ones demanding.
The fashion industry is moving away from fur.
Actually, a lot of the brands are still working with fur. LVMH Group and Caring Group, who own many of the large fashion brands, have been developing this with us. They're talking to us about how we can work with some more natural-based dyes to come in for the process. So yeah, I'm definitely keen to do that.
But why do you think, Mark, that Stella McCartney and Donna Karan and Donatella Versace and Diane von Furstenberg and Timberland, and the list goes on, every major fashion designer, maybe not every, most of them, have all moved away from fur. They've all said, I mean, I'm getting letters from these major designers in New York City who are telling me, I know the industry, I've worked in it, people like Tim Gunn and people that Tim Gunn worked with saying, we've studied this, we know about it, it is inhumane, it is cruel, there are other ways to do this. The fashion industry is moving away from fur. Maybe you're saying consumers aren't, but industry leaders are. Why do you think they're doing that? Why do you think Donatella Versace and Donna Karan and Diane von Furstenberg are saying we no longer want to use fur?
I think they've made a choice.
Why?
I respect their choice.
Why do you think they made that choice?
I think that there is, I mean, some of the statements they made around giving up fur were very odd to me, because they said they wanted to become more sustainable, and I find it odd that they're actually switching to a more
But they also talked about cruelty.
Well, that's a personal, I mean, we come back to maybe this whole debate is framed around that, personal choice, personal decisions. Donatella and others have, and Stella
I don't know if it's
McCartney
personal choice. I think it's living in a humane society. I think it's not about personal choice. It's about how do we treat other sentient beings that have feelings, and we've made decisions over the years on understanding that elephants have deep grief and that we don't want to sell ivory, import ivory in a way for the killing of elephants to incentivize it. We make these decisions as we evolve as a society on how to treat other sentient beings.
But Mr. Speaker, we also have a principle of individual choice. And so for the Donatellas who've decided to ban it, the Louis Vuittons, the Fendis, the Canada Goose, the Uggs and others are still choosing to carry on. And I guess what I would love to see here is a way in which if New Yorkers wanted fur banned, they would just stop buying it. They wouldn't be going to Macy's and Bloomingdale's and Barney's. They wouldn't be going to the Garment District. They wouldn't be buying Canada Goose. They wouldn't be buying these products. But they are buying them in large numbers. And it's about an issue. It's about an issue of choice. I totally respect the speakers here who don't want to buy fur, but just to allow me and my colleagues the chance to buy it.
I have a question for you on that. Does that mean that we should allow the choice of ivory?
No, I think that on the issue of ivory, that there are difficult ethical issues for me on that.
Should we allow the choice of tiger skin?
And so, no, for me personally, I wouldn't wish to.
So then what's the difference? That's choice.
It is choice.
If the market decided that, and the market has decided in the past, there's a market for ivory.
And
so should we allow that choice?
There's a fascinating.
Should we allow that choice for ivory?
No, I don't believe in that.
Why not? What's the difference?
Because there's a threshold that you arrive at as a politician. There's a threshold you arrive at a politician, I believe, where you have to take a judgment as to whether or not you feel that evidence is overwhelming in favour of a ban or overwhelming in favour of regulation and freedom of choice. On this issue, I don't believe it is overwhelming. I think there is compelling arguments on both sides, and I would like to see the solution of having it regulated to allow that choice, but also reaching the concerns that you and many of your committee have about making sure the industry is ethical and properly regulated. I think both things can be done, and you as a politician are in the business of making things happen. I know you're frustrated and want stuff to happen. this is a way in which we could do it rather than ending up with rows with WTO and all those kind of things. Let's do this together and make a difference.
If this is about choice and transparency and education, there's been a tremendous amount, and this is factual, of false labeling in the fur industry. So that's not about choice. If you're giving people bad information, they don't get to make an accurate choice if things are mislabeled.
And when you ask me, Mark, what is different, what do you want to improve on? I want to improve on that. That's why the fur mark will be a mark.
So if you're going to be self-reflective, as I asked earlier, you would say that there is a problem on labeling. There has been a problem on labeling.
I would say that we need to be much better at labeling and giving consumers information. Absolutely, I acknowledge that.
So there's been a problem with labeling.
If you're trying to make me say there's a problem with labeling.
No, if you don't believe there's a problem, say you don't think there's a problem.
There's a problem because we don't have clear labeling for products in New York, in this country. We need to. Fur mark is the solution to that. We could have a system where the individual retailers and shops have a fur mark label showing consumers. We would put in place an inspection regime to make sure that every product being shown having the fur mark label, we can trace back to make sure it really is from fur mark. So we could overcome the difficulty about labeling. Yes, I think we can.
Do you live in New York? Do you live in London? Do you live in the UK?
I feel an intruder here.
Sorry, the reason why I'm asking, because I want to ask about London. I read, and correct me if I'm wrong, some people told me this is bad information, that London is not allowing fur on the runway for Fashion Week.
That's bad information. I met with Caroline Rush.
Because I just read an article in the Guardian. I Googled it. It's right online right here, where the newspaper in London says that fur is not allowed on the runway anymore.
And we can phone Caroline Rush, who's the CEO of London Fashion Week, and she will tell you that's absolutely not the case. I had breakfast with her a couple of months ago. She gave me an absolute guarantee that's not the case. And in fact, at February, which just went, fur was shown at London Fashion Week. It is a myth. It's not true. You can speak to Caroline Rush yourself. I'll give you her cell if you want.
So what in New York City, fur apparel waste would necessarily go to a landfill when it's finally disposed of because it can't be recycled or composted. And a landfill, it would contribute to the uncontrolled release of methane and the release of toxins into the soil and groundwater. What programs, if any, are available to consumers to send their fur apparel so that it may biodegrade in a manner that is not harmful to the environment, given the chemicals and carcinogens that we talked about that are using? What biodegradable program are you proposing or currently exists?
Well, I mean, number one, very, very few people actually send their fur to landfill. It generally gets either passed down through the generations.
Or repurposed.
Or it gets remade. We just did some work in the Netherlands where we took natural fur and sent it to some labs, and it started to biodegrade within 30 days. And then we took some fake fur, and the biodegradable process just doesn't begin. So actually our product does biodegrade. It doesn't end up in landfill. The one issue you raise in terms of the chemicals, yes, obviously there is a chemical issue, but that will be the same whether you're talking about the fake fur or the natural fur.
Mark, did you testify when Los Angeles was considering this a couple of years ago?
No.
Did your organization testify against the bill in Los Angeles?
So I thought you meant me personally.
No, did your organization testify against the bill in Los Angeles?
Yeah, my colleagues from the American International Fur Federation attended both in San Francisco and LA.
And my understanding is in Los Angeles it passed unanimously. There was one no vote, but the entire council almost passed it there. And I think they had extensive hearings like this to talk about the merits of it.
They did, but in Beverly Hills, the same process happened and the council didn't pass it.
The International Fur Federation, are you all funded in any way by fur farms?
Yes, completely. Yes, we're funded by a levy on every single skin that is sold. So to that extent, we are receiving money from the industry, and we are the industry representatives.
Yeah.
We're not.
I just wasn't sure who you The Fur Federation, who you exactly represent, and so you're represented predominantly, exclusively by the fur farms themselves.
No, so we represent the fur farms, the trappers, we represent the dressers and dyers, we represent designers, we represent retailers, we represent the auction houses, they're the guys that sell the fur. So we represent every part of the value chain of the fur industry.
And one of the things that I'm confused about is if you're asking to set up the Furmark self-regulated global program with the different thresholds that you mentioned, the thresholds are different all over the world about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. So even if we were to come up with a standard that you all said was the appropriate standard for selling fur in New York City, if you're importing fur from China or Russia or another country that doesn't have those strict standards, how do we know that? How do we differentiate? Through Furmark, how do we do that?
I would not include China in Furmark. I'm not including China in Furmark. So
including Russia?
I'm including some of the farms that produce sable in Russia, but they're going to be literally 10 farms that are highly inspected to make sure that they meet all the Furmark standards. But in terms of China, it's not part of Furmark. And the reason it's not part of Furmark is it doesn't meet the threshold that I want in relation to the standards and the inspections. So I've heard your broadcasts on radio where you've expressed concern about fur coming from China. Furmark would mean that wouldn't happen here in New York.
When was Furmark thought of? I mean, when did you decide to create Furmark?
So we started working on Furmark around 2.5, 3 years ago. And as you indicated earlier on, it's a complicated process. Because we had to get the independent science, that took us a year to a year and a half to get the scientists to go through the process. They take a long time.
But how do you define independent?
Independence is that
you guys hired these people.
Yeah. We have obviously to fund them. I can't find anybody else to fund them. So as much as they can be independent, they are, except for the fact that, yep, absolutely, they will receive the money from our organization as well. And I can't avoid that. However, the check and balance in there is that each of the countries that we're talking about in relation to Furmark also, in addition to everything that we're doing, there is government inspection in process. And again, I didn't understand when some of the colleagues who opposed fur said there's no regulation in place. Listen, this is such a controversial industry, let's face it, that there is lots of regulation in place, which is government regulation. But now that is not funded by us. We're going above that with Furmark so that we can streamline the process.
But correct me if I'm wrong. The information I have from the lawyers and the policy analysts here at the council through their research in preparing for today's hearing says that fur farming has been banned in numerous countries. Is that correct?
Oh, so it's been banned in the UK.
Why? Why was it banned in the UK? Why did the government make the decision to ban fur farming?
It was a popular issue. It was a Labour government that came in. They decided to ban fur. They decided to ban fox farming. They decided to ban a number of issues in the UK. And, obviously, they have an elected mandate. That's their choice. Austria has also banned fur farming. There is currently...
the Netherlands has banned fur farming.
There's currently farming in Netherlands, but that will be phased out, and I think in about 3 years' time.
And Northern Ireland has banned fur farming.
Well, it's part of the UK.
Yes. Serbia and Croatia.
Yep.
Have banned fur farming. It's being phased out in Denmark.
No, it's absolutely not being phased out in Denmark. Denmark has, as you'll hear later from one of the vets from Denmark, Denmark is one of the biggest fur farming countries.
It's not being phased out.
Absolutely.
Japan?
No, not that I'm aware.
Okay.
No.
So I might have bad information here.
Yeah.
I see that the information I have says that Denmark and Japan is being phased out.
No, Denmark is a very, very strong supporter of fur. In fact, the Danish government have expressed concerns about what's happening in New York, and we're talking to them at the moment about what the WTO and GATT implications of a fur ban in New York are. So no, they're very, very supportive of fur.
And again, just on the British Fashion Week, on London Fashion Week, the information I have, it says, in 2018, the British Fashion Council declared that London Fashion Week would be totally fur-free.
Absolutely. I know. I don't know how I can say it many more times without sounding peculiar, but Caroline Rush is the CEO. I know her. I spoke to her. Absolutely not. And we can show you the fur that was shown in February just a few months ago.
So the lawyers tell me that fox farming is currently banned in Denmark.
Yes. Yeah, that was many years ago.
So partially.
Sorry, I thought you meant currently being phased out. No, there was a ban in the past on that.
Okay.
What animals do you deal with?
Mink.
Mink?
Yes.
How many you usually have in a cage?
Never more than 2. Like Mark said, during the whelp, when they're having their babies, you can't avoid that. But never more than 2 on our farm.
Are there not solitary creatures in the natural?
No.
They are solitary creatures. I'm telling you, they are. And so, which I'm surprised. I mean, this is what you do for a living. And, when you put them together, you take it out of their normal habitat and the normal natural instinct. You put them in a situation that you put them in a situation that is unnatural and therefore not beneficial for the mink. And so I'm just wondering why you wouldn't put them in a single cage, an individual mink in an individual cage.
So we put them in. We've done studies. There's been studies been done where they do better at a young age with a pair, and then once they reach adulthood, then yes, they're in individual cage. For no doubt about that. Once they become adults, for their own safety and the safety of the other one, of course.
Here's my last thing.
How big are those cages?
Good question.
They're. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't want to guess.
But wait. I'm confused. You're the rancher.
2 feet by 3 feet.
2 feet by 3 feet.
With a nest box and bedding inside of it.
2 feet by 3 feet. This is their living space for their entire lives.
Yes.
Our understanding is that most mink. Cages are the size of a shoebox. Is the information that we received?
That's not correct.
No? Okay.
No.
Well, let's suppose. I'll give you the 2 feet, 3 feet. Is that like a natural type of environment? A humane way to go about it when it comes to a mink?
According to the, like Mark says, according to scientists, that's what they.
I don't know the last time that a scientist interviewed a mink and say, hey, is this the way, is this a good living? I know I'm being a little sarcastic here, but come on.
Excuse me, have you interviewed a mink?
No, and that's my point. That's exactly my point. But I do see the natural habitat where they live in, and they do not live in a 2 feet by 3 feet environment. Let's be real. Let me talk about the elephant in the room here. We are raising animals just for the sole purpose of skinning them for our looks. Really. That needed to be said. I just got to get it off my chest.
No, folks.
If you agree with something, just both sides, just go like this. All right? Let's do like church. But I had to tell you, I had to get it on my chest, because really at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. And as it was said before, it's not a byproduct, when it comes to food. Yes, I hear my colleague with Adam and Eve. I'm a pastor of a church, and there was a necessity back there. We don't need this anymore. This is the real issue before us, and I sympathize when it comes to the job. Please understand, my heart goes out. I hear you. But what I hear and what we could maybe do here, Mr. Speaker, is to be able to transfer these jobs to be conducive and congruent to what New Yorkers are asking for. We're talking about 75% plus in all of the boroughs. This is not like this borough wants this and the other one wants this. I know you mentioned Beverly Hills, but you know what? Some of the richest people, as a matter of fact, the fifth richest people in America live right here, a couple of blocks away, and they're speaking loud. They live right here in Tribeca, making $850,000. And then you can go to my district where people are making $30,000, and everybody's saying the same thing. And I think the discussion should be now, how do we transition people who are in the field and to be able to help them with the transferable skills that they have, awesome skills that they have, to be able for them to have a job, to take care of their families, and at the same time do humane thing. Because I don't see a humane way of raising animals to basically, we're gonna raise you. I imagine aliens came from outer space and say, well, we're just going to raise humans just to take your skin so we can wear them. I mean, it's just like, it just doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker. I just don't see, and you can answer back if you want, but I just don't see the logic. It's unreasonable, and it's inhumane, you know? It just makes no sense.
Councilmember, I want to thank you, and I want to just mention that it's my understanding, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, that the Fur Commission, the guidelines that are developed and regularly updated by the Fur Commission of the United States advises on the ethical farming of minks, that this is what they recommend. The recommended pen cage size for a female mink without a litter is 15 inches high and 7.5 inches wide. That's the guidelines the Fur Commission recommends in the United States of America. So 15 inches high and 7.5 inches wide. It's only a few inches higher than a shoebox standing on its end.
That's currently outdated. No, that's
out. When was that changed?
Ryan, month ago? 2 months ago?
2 months ago.
2 years ago.
2 years ago. 2 years ago. Okay. I want to thank you, Councilmember. I want to turn it to Councilmember Rosenthal.
So 2 years ago, what's the new standard requirement?
What's
the current requirement?
What's the current cage requirement?
I don't have the standard in front of me right now.
Do you know? What's the current requirement? So it's slightly larger than 15 inches by 7 inches. So maybe 10 inches by 20 inches?
But just so you know, Councilmember, what I was reading off of is from the Fur Commission website, and it says this was the 2019 edition, Book 1. So this was the updated edition from this year. It's what is on the website right now. So the Fur Commission should update the website if the website's not accurately reflecting reality. This is what the website says right now if you go to the website.
So that's concerning, and it does also make me wonder. I mean, I don't know if you were sworn in, but it makes me wonder about your saying that your cages are 2 feet by 3 feet. But even that aside, I concur, of course, with Councilmember Cabrera that's inhumane from the get-go.
Good afternoon, councilpersons. Thank you. My name is Rodney King. I'm here as a private citizen. I'm a native Brooklynite, a husband and father, and someone who comes to you today to speak in strong support for 1476, the measure to ban the sale of fur products in New York City. My purpose today is to speak not only as a proponent for the humane and ethical treatment of animals, but as an African American man. I'm here to dispel some of the myths that may be propagated here today and stereotypes of how we, African Americans, and more specifically black men, think when it comes to issues such as this. I come from a people who have too often been portrayed by the larger society in general as people who are incapable of a broad range of feelings and emotions, or as incapable of showing compassion for others, much less creatures described as lesser than us, of being not much more than brutish creatures ourselves. African Americans have indeed routinely been denied the ability to achieve the so-called status so often reserved often for many white Americans. And so when the obstacles to those achievements are overcome, it is indeed something to be celebrated and cherished. However, immersing ourselves in the outward trappings and raiment of this so-called status does nothing to actually achieve any achievement at all. It only serves to reinforce long-held beliefs that we are a backwards-thinking juvenile people who are more concerned with material goods and obtaining the many baubles and trinkets of our former oppressors that were so long denied to us, as opposed to obtaining the true signifiers of achievement: a good education, a good job, decent living conditions, decent health care, and a just and fair criminal justice system, and the respect of our neighbors and peers. Please don't fall for the okey-doke. Please don't be bamboozled, okay? It is incumbent upon you for you to act upon your conscience and not be intimidated by political fear, by those who would use subterfuge to make you believe that this is somehow a racial or religious issue.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak here today. My name is Mark Bauer. I am a New York fashion designer. I have a successful business here in New York City. We do not sell or design anything using real fur. I am fortunate to dress some very famous women like Angelina Jolie, Beyonce, Oprah, Shania Twain, Mariah Carey, Emily Blunt, and Tyra Banks, just to name a few. Many who seek out fur-like alternatives, I'm only too happy to show them. We New Yorkers do not hunt animals for food. We New Yorkers do not live in caves. There is no good reason for us to wear real fur on our bodies to keep us warm. Technology has given us incredible faux fur if we so choose to wear fur. Animals that are bred on fur farms specifically for their skins live in horrific cage conditions. They are anally electrocuted, causing unimaginable suffering. Many don't actually die from this process and are often skinned while they are still alive. In places like China, they are just skin peeled and tossed alive into writhing piles to die a slow, agonizing death. All these poor animals, like us humans, bond and protect their young. They, just like us, experience fear, pain, and suffering. There is absolutely no excuse for cruelty to animals. Anyone that profits from the sale of fur is perpetuating cruelty to animals. Anyone wearing real fur sends a message of vanity. They just don't care. So I'm asking you, New Yorkers, please care. We New Yorkers are the heroes of compassion and change. Please, New York, be the heroes for these suffering animals and ban the sale of fur in New York. Real fur belongs on an animal's body, not on ours. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable council members. My name is Cynthia King. I'm a business owner, a teacher, a wife, a proud wife, a mother, and a voter. I'm speaking today on behalf of New York City Hip Hop is Green. Hip Hop is Green is a pioneering movement led by a team of artists and performers that use the power and influence of hip hop to speak to youth and spark positive changes in their lives. Fur symbolizes inhumanity, captivity, oppression, and violence. We refute any notion that fur has some specific cultural importance, as we know that, unfortunately, status-seeking and materialism belongs to many cultures. We work to empower our young people with things of true value: empathy, compassion, healthy habits, and good education. We teach them to avoid following detrimental trends like the excessive spending, especially on things that they've been convinced represent success, achievement, luxury, but really only empower the owners, the industry, people who do not uplift our community. The fur industry is a cruel and barbaric one. Animal cruelty is linked directly or indirectly with every type of violent crime. Domestic violence, child abuse, spouse abuse, and elder abuse is closely associated with animal cruelty. Perpetrators perpetrators use animal cruelty to control women and children in abusive situations. The connection between animal cruelty and violence is indisputable. The fur industry is animal cruelty. We must not turn a blind eye to an industry that perpetuates violence, the exact opposite of what our community needs. We must embrace this moment of progress and ban the sale of fur in our city. We know New York City leads the world, although LA is ahead of us a little bit on this one. The fur industry has sunk to a new low. To try to maintain profits and relevance, they feign concern for communities that they see only as a revenue source, not as a genuine ally or partner. It is common sense that we should try to alleviate suffering whenever we can. We commend Speaker Johnson on his courageous and compassionate leadership, and you all. New York City Hip Hop is Green supports Intro 1476. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Good afternoon. My name is Nora Constance Marino. I'm an attorney. I'm a former First Lieutenant JAG officer in the United States Army Reserves. I received an honorable discharge. I'm currently a commissioner on the Tax Limousine Commission, although I'm not here in that official capacity today. I'm here in my capacity as a concerned citizen and also the president of an organization called the Animal Cruelty Exposure Fund. I don't want to repeat any of the testimony that's been given. It's already very late in the day, so I just want to point out a few things, a few points that are follow-ups of other people's testimony. First of all, I want to clarify something. An attorney for the opposition to the bill stated that Lemon versus Kurtzman, which is a 1971 U.S. Supreme Court case, holds that this type of law would be in violation of the Establishment Clause. It wouldn't. My law practice specializes and concentrates in constitutional law issues and civil rights violations, and that's simply not true. I can't explain that in a minute and 3 seconds, but it's not. I understand that people are worried about losing jobs and losing businesses, but evolution sometimes just dictates that. And as the speaker said, there are times when inner reflection is necessary. Yes, we've decided ivory isn't appropriate, and there have been laws put in place in that. Years ago, a husband could legally beat his wife. The expression rule of thumb comes from the fact that a husband could beat his wife with a rod that did not exceed the width of his thumb. We decided that wasn't right. Laws evolve and change with society, and if New York City is going to be the progressive city that we want it to be, we have to engage in progress. And realizing that animals are sentient beings, we are the dominant species on this planet. We have an obligation to other animals, and there's no choice here. We don't have to choose. You have to care about humans or animals. Guess what? We can care about everybody, and I'm in full support of this bill. It's a humane bill, it's a progressive bill, and New York City should be leading the way with these types of bills. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Caterina Trabazo, a professor at St. John's University. First, thank you for introducing 1476 and the opportunity to speak in support of this bill. I recently learned that a few individuals are calling this a racist bill. It's unfortunate that anyone would use race to defend an industry that represents apathy, cruelty, exploitation, oppression, slavery, and torture, all which are not excluded to humans. I'll remind these same individuals that fur is used as a social status symbol of luxury and vanity, mostly worn by white privileged women. It is criminal for anyone to support an unimaginable cruel industry, especially when we do not need to wear something which represents exploitation. Like humans, animals are not commodities. Another excuse presented was the loss of jobs. Like many other things, jobs evolve. Jobs are not secure, nor should they be when it involves oppression. Remember that slavery was a business and legal and a personal choice. This is one of the reasons the biggest names in fashion are no longer using fur. To the furriers, this is not your demise. That this is an opportunity to create more jobs with many new different alternatives. Fur is antiquated, and wearing it in 2019 appears primitive. Be on the right side of history by ending the sale of fur. You can do this, New York City. Thank you.
My name is Paola Gavino. I'm a canine behaviorist in New York City. So almost all of us share a very special affinity with individuals of other species. Many of us share that bond with fur-bearer animals. We share our lives with dogs and cats at home that are direct relatives of animals used in the fur industry. Thus, it's so painful to walk the streets of New York City during winter and see their skins on displays of department stores, thinking that could be my dog, a member of my family. Wild animals that should be free displayed as things. Fur is only beautiful in its original owner. That's why I'm speaking out today in support of Intro 1476. Each year, over 100 million fur-bearing animals die miserably in fur traps, many leaving their babies behind to die of starvation and other equally inhumane deaths. What we have been hearing here about fur farmers treating the animals humanely is totally false. The truth is there's no humane or respectful way to slaughter an animal or someone just for something so vain and selfish as a fashion garment. As stewards of this planet, we have to be more empathic towards other animals and try to make their lives better. Although we don't think about it, their lives have a meaning and a purpose, and as does the life of each of us. Their life is the only thing they have. Life they experience through their senses and emotions, through their interactions with others and their environment. Animals used in the fur industry have been deprived of all of this. They have no autonomy whatsoever, no natural environment. We have robbed them of everything that is natural for them.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, so hello, my name is Jabari Brisport. I live in District 35, Laurie Cumbo's district. I want to thank you for your time here. I'm a public school teacher and a board member of Voters for Animal Rights. I want to thank you again for listening. I'm speaking in favor of Intro 1476. Let the record state that I am a black man. I've been black my whole life. I promise, I swear. And I want to say that no one in my big black family that I know of wears real fur. My mother has this fake fur coat that she wears once in a blue moon. I have a winter coat lined with fake fur. It's actually made, it's very soft material named Satifer, made from hemp fibers and recycled bottles, and you didn't need to murder anybody and rip their skin off to get it. So it's weird to me to hear that the fur industry is saying that banning fur is racist. It's weird that people who look like me were bribed with a $250 Amex card into coming to City Hall last week and holding up signs for a photo op. And it's sad that people who probably really needed that money were used and tokenized last week. And you know, it's weird, but I actually find it not surprising. Our country actually has a long history of using black bodies to further agendas. However, I rest assured knowing that any black person with a knowledge of American history can understand that sometimes an industry needs to die. Because sometimes that industry is being propped up by predominantly white people, predominantly white men whose main argument is that they'll lose their job, and they don't care that that job requires making someone scream, or that the job requires making someone bleed, or that the job requires making someone die. New York City is a progressive leader in so many respects, but we're not in the 21st century when it comes to fur. So I sincerely hope the City Council votes to bring New York City into modern times as opposed to sustaining an industry started by cavemen. Thank you.
My name is Vanessa Soldano. I was born and raised in Staten Island, New York, and I currently live in District 49. My designated council member is Deborah Rose. Unnecessary animal cruelty is all around us. However, it is more apparent and undeniable in certain industries than it is in others. The fur industry is one of the many animal abusing industries that is completely unnecessary in New York City. Not only are there superior cruelty-free and eco-friendly alternatives to fur, but there is an entire non-violent growing industry that focuses on creating compassionate fabrics and making compassionate fashion and beauty choices that don't rely on anally electrocuting, leg trapping, drowning, neck breaking, skinning, and ultimately killing harmless, innocent animals who deserve respect. The cruelty-free fashion industry is one of great opportunity for those of you that are concerned about your money, despite the fact that there should be more prevalent concerns on your minds. If you are here because you're concerned about money, please be reminded that fur industry money is filthy. Fur industry money is blood money. Fur industry money exists thanks to people in this room paying other people to deliberately hurt and torture non-human animals, just like the pets we see walking the streets of New York City, just like the pets a lot of us in this room take care of and protect at home. What do you buy your families with the money made off of this torture? Would you want your child to bring videos of anal electrocution to show and tell? What kind of world are we continuing to create for our children? How can we teach them that hurting a domesticated dog or cat is wrong and illegal, and wearing the fur of another animal is beautiful and legal? One more thing, I'm sorry. In America, freedom of choice is questioned when there are victims involved. I'm not the only person with these questions.
Thank you.